Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm here today with Ana Merced. Empowered life and business coach Ana Merced was told by her mother at 15 that she had been expecting and she wanted an abortion. Feelings of rejection, abandonment, and lack of acceptance unconsciously took control of most of her decisions that she made in her life, including her career. She was in a desperate search of approval and recognition. And so she invested 18 years of her life as a sales and marketing expert, trying to fit in and feel accepted. She realized how unhappy and bitter that had made her feel. She decided to work on herself from the inside out. So now, as an empowered clarity and confidence coach, she supports professional women to use self-love as a source of power so they can authentically live their lives on their own terms. She is all about being authentic. She goes above and beyond supporting her clients to connect to the best version of themselves. She strives to create value by connecting people to their real, unique, and genuine self, making that their starting point in their journey from the inside out, supporting women making more self-loving, accepting, and aligned decisions in their own lives. And without further ado, I want to welcome the one and only Ana Merced to the show. Today we talked about people pleasing. Do you find it hard to say no? How your story can be your superpower. Any story. It could be, you maybe started out from a victim mentality, but you can flip it on its head. We talked about gaining outside approval, outside validation, and why it's important to get internal validation. If you're overachieving, is no trophy or any accolade, it's never enough. You're off to the next achievement. Are you an overachiever? And how to start your journey towards the life you deserve, and so much more today, you guys. This was all about acceptance and self-approval. And I hope you guys really enjoy this episode with Ana. I'm so excited to welcome Ana Merced to the Sisterhood of Sweat today.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here today with you. Thank you for having me.
And we are talking about one of my favorite topics, and one that I feel is really important for women because we are the nurturers. Self-love today, you guys. And I just want to dive into your background, Ana, so everybody can understand how you became the self-empowerment, self-love coach.
Yes, well, I guess that we all learned from contrast, right? It was from the experience of actually not loving myself, not accepting myself, pleasing everybody, leaving me to the last, to be able to look good from the outside and to get that external source of approval. So it was actually living in the contrary side and the other side of the coin that I eventually, with, different situations, right? Aha moments or special moments in your life when you realize, oh my God, I guess that, I need to experience the contrary of what I am doing right now, because this is certainly not making me happy, and I'm exhausted, I'm depleted, overwhelmed. And that's how you come about getting into the light when you're living in the darkness, right, so to speak.
So when you were telling me earlier, we always have the greatest conversations before we start the show, and I really want to give the audience a glimpse of your life growing up, because I think that our past can affect our future until we kind of really make peace with the past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Until we kind of rise above, and then you make your story your superpower. But initially, what I was experimenting and what I used to, how the way that I used to story tell or just to explain what I was going through. It was like more on the victim side of the fence, oh, this is happening to me, and say not for me. So there was a point in time when my story was not something that I was proud to share, and that I was actually trying to, cover it under the covers, and just like try to patch it up to make myself look good from the outside. So I guess that one of the things that started me into the journey of pleasing, perfecting, performing, and providing was when my mom told me when I was a teenager. I still, every time I tell this story, I try to remember how old I was, but I guess it was so traumatizing for me at the time. I know I was a teenager. I don't know if I was 15, 14. I don't remember. I guess that it was kind of a blur for me back then. And I tried to put that under the covers and just make believe myself that I didn't have that conversation with her, because she literally helped me to her room and said, and I don't know how I even started, but she voluntarily and very willingly talked. She basically told me the story behind my conception, and how I knew she had me when she was 19, and but she already had my brother. We're only 1 year and 2 months apart, so she was already a mother of one. And when he was 6 months, she got pregnant of me, and she was like, oh my God, no, this just can't be. I want to study. I have goals. She always had this entrepreneur spirit that she thought that obviously I was going to be more than a blessing, but a burden. And then she explained, and she went through all the details. And I do remember sitting across her and thinking, what the heck is she? I don't need to listen to this. I didn't have any skills in terms of internal knowledge or wisdom or capacity, or however you want to call that, emotional intelligence, to handle all that information. So what I did was it, and I learned that that's the kind of commitment that I made to myself after that conversation. I do remember thinking this. I didn't know back then that I was actually making a binding agreement with myself that was ultimately going to have a lot of impact in my future. But what I agreed with myself when I was a teenager, after listening to that conversation, I said to myself, I'm going to do everything in my power so you can regret not wanting to have me. So I said, I'm going to be better than I have two siblings, two brothers, one older and one younger. I'm going to be better than them. I'm going to overperform. I'm going to do everything I can to have better grades, do better at sports, everything that you do when you're a teenager. I just had to be better than anybody else, especially my brothers, because I was jealous of them. That how could you want to have them and not me? You know? So and down the road, that ended up, me having, or basically making a whole bunch of decisions based on others people's expectations of me. So I was always thinking, when I had to take a decision whether I study what I want or study what I think my mom would be proud of me. So I always, when I was in that scenario, I always chose, what would my mom say? Would she approve of that? Would she like that? Would that be better than what she's had before? Would that be even better than what she did? So I always made many personal and professional decisions in terms of my education based on that, and just looking for external approval. So I was consistently overperforming at my job. I was in sales and marketing for 18 years. So I always, like, if I sold a big account, I went to her and say, Mom, I sold a 500,000 account. To no surprise now. I don't feel that's a surprise now, but back then I felt very disappointed when I, just brought my record, my wins to her, and she just turned them away, and she said, yeah, that's nice. Oh, well, that's cool. Yeah, I know. I always knew you could do that stuff, just like putting me down a little, never actually celebrating. So I got used to overperforming consistently. And even I got into the role of not even sharing my accomplishments to a degree. And I had other people come and say, oh, Anna, you did such a great job. Maybe back then, I don't know, my sales manager, oh, that's great. That's amazing. I grew up even having difficulties accepting acknowledgement from other people, because all I wanted was my mother's acknowledgement. So that's in a nutshell the backbone of the story.
Wow. I just realized we do a lot of the same thing for the same reason. And just not getting that approval and recognition from a parent when you're young, and there's that lack of something, that feeling of support, so you seek it out. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I built the Sisterhood of Sweat, because I didn't want anyone to ever feel that alone and unsupported. And I feel like that is part of the reason you've built your business, and you're all about showing professional women support and self-love as their source of power.
Mhm.
How can we, if we've had moments like that in our life where we don't feel supported, and we maybe recognize that we are overachieving to gain this uh, validation, how can we flip that around and begin to give it to ourselves?
Well, the first step into any change, whatever that might be, if it's the one that you just explained, it's self-awareness. You have to become aware. Well, the first step is like, oh, wait, I realize now that I've been doing all the stuff and overperforming because I need X amount of validation from X person, let's say your mother, your father, whoever. But then more than that, more than just the realization of what you're doing, what you're actually acting out as, you need to dig deeper into yourself, because that's kind of like when you're trying to organize a closet that's dark and has no light bulb, and you want to start organizing it, but at the dark, how can you even start? How do you know what things to toss away? What things are you going to keep? What things are you going to throw away? What needs to be undusted? So it's kind of like reorganizing, re-engineering yourself from the inside out. It's more than just saying, well, because this is what we do, and this is a way of trying to fix things from the outer side. We listen to motivational speakers, and all of a sudden we start reading books of acceptance, and maybe we start getting our hands into a couple of resources, or maybe we have mantras that we repeat ourselves. And I'm not saying this is not also valid and has a lot of value and could actually help you out, but what I'm saying or trying to say here is that the most awareness or the most light comes from within, from actually going deep. Because I realized I've always, the first time I realized that I was a people pleaser, I was on a workshop, and I have half an hour to go have like a coffee break whatsoever. I had a friend call me, and we have to be sharp at 12, like, I don't know, it's whatever. The time that it started, I had to had my sweet little ass on that chair sharp on time, or else hell was going to break loose, because it was part of what we were learning, how to be punctual, you name it. The thing is that I had a friend call me right when I stepped out of my break, and he said, oh, can we have coffee? So where at you, Anne? And he was about 15 minutes away. Could you believe that I couldn't say no? Oh no, I have half an hour and I really have to be sharp, seated, I'm on time within my meeting. So I could easily say no. I said yes. And I rushed into my car. I got into traffic. I sat down. I had this really coffee. I barely shared a couple of sentences with him, whatever. And then I stormed out of the coffee shop. Try to get back to my meeting. And I put so much energy into clearing out the traffic. I was like, the law of attraction, let the cars move, everybody. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it happened, because I was so freaking late and I was outside of my reach within the area. I did get on time, and I sat there at 12, like, oh, 1 second, like, doom. It's like, oh my God, it's such a rush. And the leader started, just talking to me when she started the meeting. She said, so everybody's on time. Who is here on time? Do you feel that you were here on time? And I was like, I just cracked up, and I was like, I can't even say no to a friend. I was supposed to be here late. I don't even know how I got here on time. I just called myself out, and I realized, oh my God, I can't even say no to a coffee with a friend, because I have to please everybody. And then I realized, and
It's
all of a sudden,
exhausting. It's
it's
exhausting.
exhausting. I feel depleted, and I was supposed to enjoy this coffee, and I'm just feeling my stomach hurt right now. What the heck, what's wrong? And then all of a sudden, when I had this moment when I put myself out there, I gave myself the permission to be vulnerable. I said, oh my God, that comes from that conversation that I had with my mom. I not only am looking for approval from her, but 20 years down the road, I feel like I'm literally looking for approval for every single person around that I'm surrounded with in my life. And I was like,
Oh
what
my
the
gosh.
heck?
I
I
bet you,
can't
let's
keep
stop
doing
right
this.
there. I bet you so many of us listening to this right now can relate to the people pleasing, the seeking for validation, and just like this whole picture that you're painting where you are looking for approval, like you said, looking for approval to everyone. How?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, jump back into that. I just wanted to kind of call that out.
It
So
was
you,
just, I do remember that because I've done it 1,000 times. But that day, it cracked me. It's like the little drop that overflow the cup. And I was like, shoot, I know this is very small, but this goes so much deeper than this. This goes way beyond. There's so much root in here that I need to open up. I need to dig deep. And that's what I did. So my first, and not only that, in that scenario situation, but I also had other situations along the way. Like my best friend died from colon cancer. I had a come to Jesus experience with myself. Like, listen, what are you doing? Like this wake up moments, like the seeds, the whispers, like Oprah says, like the whispers, the things that happen. And are you there? Are you ready to listen, to hear, to see what's going around you? Are you open enough to receive? And not only to receive, but to put your shield down and have that honest conversation, that committed conversation, not one time. I could have had that awareness just that one time. But after that awareness, I decided to be committed with myself and work with myself inside out. And that's where self-awareness plays in. That's when you start like really digging in. When I was about to quit my corporate career that I've had for 18 years, even this self-awareness and self-discovery or self-knowledge, however you want to put that out, helped me to know, because I was stalling. I had already identified that I wanted to be a coach and I wanted to move on. Even in that scenario, what I was like, what do I do? Why am I stalling this decision? I realized through self-knowledge that I had a value of independence that was defined by me in such a way that I was not open to ask for help and support. Because one of the things that I wanted from my mom in terms of approval was her to see that I was strong enough, better than. That's why I was overperforming. And to be better than, I was not open. I was shielded, guarded up. So I was not, so independence, to no surprise, was actually my first value from the top 5. That was the first one. And the way that I defined that value was being strong, not showing myself to be vulnerable. So
oh
I had
my gosh.
issues asking for help. And all of this self-awareness and deep diving and just getting in to know myself better gave me so much light, gave me so much to work with. But right after you discover all these things about you, you have a choice. Do you want to keep, for example, in terms of the value of independence, when you go into self-knowledge and you become aware of that value and how the way that you define it is blocking your way into living your purpose and passion, which in my case was quitting my corporate job in sales and then moving along with coaching. I had to redefine it. I said, I don't want to replace it because I really feel strong about being independent. I still feel it resonates with who I am. But what I want to do is redefine it. How can I still feel independent and strong even when I ask for help? So I started like redefining these concepts and limiting beliefs and all this. I call them the Kool-Aid, right? When I call about limiting values, and when, if you see my social platforms, I always talk about the Kool-Aid. My audience knows that the Kool-Aid is the limiting beliefs, because I don't know about you guys, but my mom used to just like serve me water with artificial flavors when I was small, back in the 90s. And nowadays we know we're not supposed to drink that, but back then that was like, organic juice, right? And it was all full of, coloring, artificial flavors, and sugar. So that's the Kool-Aid that you've been served every single day, and that you decided unconsciously or consciously, it was still your decision. You decided to drink it, you decided to believe it. I decided to believe that being independent was not being open enough and putting yourself in a vulnerable spot, as to being true to yourself, honest, transparent, vulnerable, asking for help. So I started working myself, and I decided to redefine independence and give it a definition that would help me and would work into. So what I want to do ultimately, I want to become a life coach. I want to do this. I want to do this as a full-time. I don't want to do it part-time anymore. This is my passion. I believe that this is what I was born for. How do I transition to that? Do I keep this value, or do I redefine it? So I redefined it in terms of how it could help me transition into my full-time life coaching business. And that's what I did. And 1 month later, I gave my resignation letter, and here I am, and I did it with complete and absolute peace, joy, very aligned. And I was just happy to my bones, because I decided to work inside out with me. And that's every time, if you're working with self-acceptance or people pleasing, you got to dig deep. You got to do the internal work. You had to have that conversation with you. And then after that, then you fall into what is, okay, so now that I've discovered so much of myself, how do I honor my shadow? How do I own my story? How do I make my story my superpower? What do I do that would make me feel that I don't need a wipeout or a giant eraser to just like erase my past? How do I feel compassion for myself? How do I honor and give myself grace? And how do I have the courage the courage of being vulnerable? Because we feel that being vulnerable is being weak, but it's to the contrary. You need a lot of courage to show up as a vulnerable person and open up.
Well, to be fair to yourself, I think I can see this is you felt rejected by your mom because she told you she had wanted an abortion. So I feel you felt rejected. And so then the only alternative, when maybe we feel that our parent didn't, it makes us feel like we weren't wanted or we weren't enough. And why were my brothers enough? Or why was this person enough and I'm not enough? So then it's almost like we protect ourselves by being this strong, invincible person that cannot be hurt and does not ask for help and is not vulnerable. But we are vulnerable. And that is why we have this whole, I think, self-protection mechanism kick in. And why we don't want to be vulnerable is we've been so hurt in the past that we just want to put this shield of protection up around us. And
Yeah.
I know, like what you were saying, I could relate so much to when you were talking about like approval and needing that like validation. How did you then like go and find that need? Because I think so many of us may have felt rejected or cast aside or not enough or all these feelings that a person might have. And we seek approval our whole lives, and that's a lot of the people pleasing. That's a lot of why we fall into that whole trap of seeking approval. How did you then go from that to this person that doesn't need others' approval? How did you start giving approval to yourself is basically what I'm trying to say.
Well, I do a lot of journaling, but this is Anna personally. That's my preference. I started giving myself, and I guess that for the benefit of your audience, you would have to start filling in this simple blank. I'm happy when I'm at, when I do, when I because those things that make your heart happy are the things that you have to start tapping in, because that's where you're going to be the most authentic. That's when you're going to be more aligned with your inner intuition, with your inner GPS. And that alone would guide you into the process, and it will be more organic. I mean, there's no, I don't like to say that there's a formula. There are certain journaling that, or certain exercises that you could do through journaling that would help you, that at least help me and have helped some of my clients. I used to, because, you know, all of this, not, you know, looking for validation, not accepting myself, being strong, I overperforming, I also impacted my life in terms that I was always thinking, if, you know, when I was about to decide whether to do A or B, I was not trusting myself. I was not trusting the process. So one of the things that I struggled with internally, and that had nothing to do with my mother. That's one of the things that, you know, and before I have to, I'm kind of going backwards, but that's one of the things that's important that you discover when you go into the first step of self-knowledge and self-awareness is like, I am the creator of my life, whether I am doing it unconsciously or consciously. I am the creator of my
Yeah.
life. The fact that my mom sat across me and told me this story, that she might have just as well just kept it to herself and it would have been better. But whatever, that's not the issue here. That's how I reacted to it. And I have to show grace to Anna when she was 15 or a teenager. She had no resources how to digest that. But now I do. What am I going to do now with the information that I got from her 25 years ago? How am I going to process that? You know, I am responsible for my life. I have the ability to respond. And that's the real definition of responsibility. I have the ability to respond in infinite ways to any situation. What am I going to do about this? How am I going to redefine and redesign my Kool-Aids? The stuff that, yeah, I chose to learn. And not only I chose to learn when I was a little kid, but that I choose to keep, you know? So it's important that you do have that responsible talk, that it's not the same being responsible as to being guilty. We're not guilty. We are responsible, but not responsible in the way that sabotages ourselves, but responsible in a way that we have response and ability, the ability to respond. You're responsible in that way. So when you start creating deliberately and you take time, you have to take time to be present, to be fully present for yourself. And that is the basic of being aware of who you're being. And then in order for you to get into self-acceptance, you have to be present. But one of the things, to answer your question, that I did, and I do suggest my clients to do, I write a letter to Anna from 5 years from now, because and it's a letter of acceptance and compassion. So I go about, this is Anna in 2020 something, whatever. I wrote one in 2018, so it must date 2023. So it's 2 years from now. You see, time flies by really, really fast. So I have it in my journal and I'm going to read it in 2023. And it says, like, doesn't matter where you're at right now, what you did, what you didn't do, you're always doing the best you can with the best of your abilities. And I want to thank you for that, because everything you do is great, is awesome, because you are a committed person. You're a superhero. I love the way that you're committed with yourself. So whatever decision you take and wherever you're at right now, I want to thank you for everything you do for yourself. I love you, Anna. So I do that kind of letters to the future. So then when I'm going to take a decision in the present, I do it out of love and not out of fear. Whatever, there's purpose in the process. So whatever decision I take, there's going to be purpose on it. My commitment has to be to be present, to be able to be present to the process, so I can see the purpose while I am traveling through the process. So that's the key component of, flipping the coin and getting to that self-acceptance. Also, there's a definition from Brené Brown. I strongly suggest, I love her. I know a lot of people know her, and you probably read this book, but it's The Gifts of Imperfection. She has a definition there about she talks about self-acceptance and the definition, or the difference between fitting in and belonging, So your sense of belonging can never be greater than your sense of self-acceptance. And fitting in is not the same thing as belonging, because fitting in is like, I'll be whoever I need to be in order for you to accept me. But we confuse these two terms. But what I really wanted to talk about is that her definition about, she talks about the 3 C's, which is courage. Um, Wait, hold on. I'm working from the top of my head. It's courage, compassion, and connection. So in terms of the definition of connection, to this day, I do remember it. And I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. But she was talking in terms of the connection that you can have with somebody that holds your space and has earned the right to hear your story, you know? So you need that safe space and that support from somebody.
Right,
But
right.
when I read the definition, it said that connection, you know that you have a connection with that XY, whatever person, with that person when there's the definition is the energy that oh my God, I learned it and I always tell it, but I kind of rephrase it. It's the energy that the sharing energy, the energy that goes between parties, that exists between parties, let's say between you and me, that you get from it substance and strength, where you
Right.
hear where you feel that you're valued, seen, and heard. But I was like, oh my God, what about if I turn this definition into the terms of how does this reflect into how do I connect with myself? So what is the energy that exists between Anna and Anna? And this plays a big part into the self-acceptance stage. You know, what's the energy that exists between me and me? You know, and this goes into your inner knowledge, your inner talks, and everything that goes inside of you. So then moreover, am I hearing myself? Am I listening to myself? You know, do I value myself? Do I get from the connection that I have with myself substance and strength? Or am I putting myself down? You know, and this is a very key part in terms of how self-acceptance work, but this is deep work. And in order for you to get to this stage, you really need to be vulnerable. There's no way that you could self-accept yourself and honor your shadows and your story and your ups and your downs. There's so much that goes into this, but you have to be present and vulnerable with yourself. And I know these are big words and sometimes are hard to digest, but candidly and lovingly, I have to say that that's the core of it, being vulnerable and present with yourself and honoring everything. When I made this program and I was in the part of self-acceptance, I was going through a really nasty breakup. And I remember feeling such huge rage against my ex. And when I went into the stage of self-acceptance, I had to realize that God, or whatever you want to call it, you know, I don't practice in a religion, but whatever that bigger source than you is in everything. It's in the joy and the laughter and the sadness, that everything, there's no love without fear, love without hate, that the love is not the absence of the bad feelings, so to speak, that love is the sum of them all. And I had to honor everything. I even had to write a letter to him because, as I said, I journal a lot. And I wrote, you know, I put his name. I forgive you for such and such and such. It kind of felt like I had to do that letter, right? I like journaling, and I felt like I had so much to just surrender or get out of my system. And after I finished the letter, I had this intuition. By then, I was already very aligned and calibrated with myself. So I heard a voice tell me, why don't you strike out his name and put yours and then read it? And I did. And everywhere I put his name was Alex. Everywhere I put Alex, I strike it off and I wrote Anna. And when I read it out loud, I found that there was so much in common between him and me that I was actually forgiving myself and not even him. So it was like really not about him. It was all about me, who I was becoming, who I was choosing to be. And it was a great healing process. After 6 months, I actually bombed. I ran across him in the street and I felt absolutely nothing. I actually wanted to hug him. To this day, I haven't seen him yet since that. But if I see him, he was my greatest teacher. And
Right,
that's
right. That's how, like, if you can look at how is this happening for me, because every experience is a teacher and you can learn something and you can take the good out of every situation, you can find that, like, if you focus on the good, you can see the good. And I just think our life is unfolding. It's like this painting. I see this painting. Your background looks like a painting. And we can decide at any moment what brushstrokes that we want to put on this painting that is called our life. And we can change our story at any moment, because many times, like you said, it's limited beliefs, or it's the stories that we're telling ourselves, or something happened and we're painting ourselves as a victim. But really, we are the painter of our own lives, and we can decide at any moment to pick up the paintbrush and change our stories.
And change the colors of our stories if you want to. Or I feel that sometimes we could just be the loving observer. That's one of the techniques that I use. I rise above. I try to, every time I'm here. Well, first of all, there's one of the things that I've incorporated into this program. Every time I grow and I go deeper within myself, I grow even deeper. The program is the fact that sometimes we don't accept what's happening. I don't accept it, and my mom does not approve of me. I can't understand, or I am resistant to the fact that this guy, betrayed me, and whatever that I can't accept that I haven't grown to my fullest potential, or that my coworker is getting paid more than me. Whatever is it that you're resistant to, or battling internally with, you could decide to be complaining because you don't like it, and therefore you're not accepting it, and then you get into, okay, so I don't accept this, so I am going to act on it and change it. And then you're acting on the frequency or on the energy level in terms of you on not wanting. So you're getting more of what you don't want. So you're getting less pay, you're still on the same pay grade, or your mom is still not accepting of you, or that's how you feel, that's your perception. And the universe is just, throwing out in front of you more experiences that are going to make you right, that are going to make you feel that, yes, that guy, he betrayed you, what a, son of a SOB, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to get more of that same thing, So, but I do the opposite. What I try to teach my clients, and I do it with myself consistently, is that I accept what is, and then I act. So the accept goes into the acceptance, and the self-acceptance, you could extrapolate acceptance into every single area of your life. But obviously, if you're the creator and you're the source of the creation of your life, if you start with self-acceptance, then everything else will fall into place. But you could, if it's hard for you to start doing it with yourself, like, oh my God, I feel so inadequate, I don't know how to start working on my self-acceptance. Maybe you could start on smaller things that you feel that are outside of you. Like, for example, that precisely, I am accepting that my mom till this day it's never validated me the way that I know that she should, or that if I were her, I would do with my own daughter. But it's not happening. But I'm accepting this. I'm going to be the loving observer of this situation. So it's kind of rising above and just looking at it without no judgment. Because one key part of self-acceptance is the labels that we put on things and on our own experiences. So we're the creators, and to your analogy, yes, you get that paintbrush and you decide that black is the bad and red is the good. And, some days we wake up and we just have that black color painting there and we just can't switch to red. We just can't, when we decided everything is wrong and bad and I don't like this. And, we're all we're doing is brushing on black, if that were to be the case, you know what I mean? So we have to, honoring is also stepping aside from labels, and seeing that everything forms part of one same thing, that nothing is separate from each other, and that there are growing opportunities in every single scenario. That, if we had a pre-birth, right, like I was telling you before we hop on the show, if that were the case, and if I chose to believe that, then okay, so I chose that was going to be my mother. So I love you and I accept you and I honor you and I honor myself, and I'm open to receive the lessons that I'm here to learn, to grow from. What are the areas of opportunity that I have here to grow from in our relationship with Wood. One thing that I could tell you is that as far as I grew with my own relationship with myself and empowering myself to self-love, and as I grew stronger within myself, my relationship with my mother also improved a lot. It's not where I wanted to be. It's not where I see my friends, they have their relationship with their mothers. But again, this is my mother. And if there was a pre-birth right or a pre-birth choice, sorry, I chose her. And if there wasn't, I'm still here. And the experience that I have is the one that I need. And how do I know that? Because that's exactly the one that I'm having. Now I get to choose how am I going to show up in this situation, who I chose to be here. What is my experience going to be around this situation?
Yeah, we all get to choose. And I think, like, as you were speaking about earlier, when you were talking about betrayal and going through that relationship and the breakup, and we all get to choose how we show up no matter what the situation. And like with the betrayal, I think if you really look at it, trouble can be your transportation. And I know when I was having, one of the a major betrayal, I ended up writing this book, Sisterhood of Sweat. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought about what it is I wanted. It wasn't what I was experiencing at the time, but what I wanted in my business, in my life surrounding female relationships. And so the acronym for SWEAT is Strong Women Empowering Achieving Together. I wanted to create a community where, as women, we weren't gossiping, backstabbing each other, being catty and competitive, but we were being supportive, strong women empowering each other and having each other's back and creating collaboration. And so I think like this huge thing was just born out of that betrayal. So I think if you look closely enough at your situation, something beautiful and amazing can come out of it, and your trouble can be your transportation to something better. And if you look at, maybe you're in a relationship right now that is ending, or they betrayed you, but if you could realize that there's somebody or something out there waiting for you that's so much better than what you have right now, right now in this very moment, that there is something better, that this is happening to you. This is, it's not happening to you is what I'm trying to say. It's happening for you. And in that hurt moment, it may be hard to see, but I know so many people that have had horrible situations, but they made lemonade out of the lemons, and like they celebrate later what they may have cried about once upon a time. So I think, again, trouble is your transportation to something better.
And I also believe that again, there's purpose in the process, and and this is one of the last steps into my program, how to get in the flow with your goal, and stepping and breaking free from that comfort zone, which is actually, comfort zone seems like we're lazy and we're not doing anything. Comfort zone for the people that I'm talking to are people to the contrary. They're just like literally overperforming and overdoing every single thing, and pleasing and juggling and multitasking and being everything for everybody. That's the comfort zone, actually, because actually stepping out of that's what's the challenge. That's what's actually challenging for this community, as it was for me too. So how do you get in the flow with your goal? How you still feel competitive, successful, but how do you open up for help, for collaborations, how to reach out for help? How do you don't feel that you're less because you're in a different stage? How do you get into your own flow with your goal without having your goal control you? So yes, there's a purpose in the process, but you have to be mindful and take accountability for each little win. There's also a difference between force and flow. So are you forcing things? Are you going on with the flow of your life? But to get onto that wave, it's just like surfing. To hop into that wave, you need to know when it's coming from. You need to feel the vibe. You need to be aligned with it. You need to know to be in the precise time with the right people and the right moment. But to be able to do that, you have to start being aware and present. What I do these days recently is that if I ask for a pen, let's say I'm at work or in the office, and I ask the assistant for a pen. I kind of co-base work in a space where everybody comes here and work, and there's a lady in the reception, and I asked for a pen, and she's like, yeah, I have a pen here. And I was like, yes, I'm the most luckiest person. I got my pen. Like if I get somebody bring me coffee, I celebrate that somebody brought me coffee, because I am so lucky that I was thinking about coffee and somebody offered it, and not only offered it, but poured it, put some sugar on it and brought it to me. Like I started getting in alignment with, so what's the universe bringing, even the little stuff, and that's how you start getting into the alignment of the being grateful vibration, gets you into a higher level, a higher
Right. You're
frequency.
changing your vibe by having gratitude, and it draws more to you. But you were saying like getting in the flow and not forcing things. I think many times we need to examine when we are forcing something. Why are we forcing it? What are we afraid of? And
Though,
what are we trying to
there's exactly who we're trying to prove, because you know what, sometimes the first thing that I tell my clients into this step of knowing whether you're in the flow with a goal or not is to ask your what for, not why you're doing it. So I want a promotion, I want a new car, I want to move out of this neighborhood. So not why you want to move out of the neighborhood, but what for. And then after you come up with that answer, you challenge that same answer with another what for. And then you keep doing that, and you go down like a bone, like a dog with a bone. And usually that exercise, there's a point where you're not going to be able to answer anything else. And usually that last answer is the uncovered emotional need that's behind that goal. So once you've discovered that, you have it, you've become aware of that, you kind of mash it up with your own set of values and with your own mission and vision statement. Is that need, emotional need that you're covering up, aligned with you, who you truly are, with your authentic self, with your mission, with your passion, with the reason that you started or embarked in this journey, or whatever that might look for everybody. So, and that's important, because it's just, you have to be in alignment. First, when I did my first workshop, I was like, am I doing this to be recognized or to have fame, or because I don't want to do it for egocentric reasons. There's a reason why I started, I started doing coaching, and it's because I want to connect with people. I wanted people to experience the power of self-love. So I was like, I wanted to challenge myself. So I did that exercise, that what for. It ended up being that ultimately the reason that I was doing the workshop is because I wanted to leave a legacy, because I don't have any kids. So this is my kid, this is what I have. If I die and somebody went to that workshop and heard me and maybe got into a coaching one-on-one with me, and I made a difference in somebody else's life, that's my legacy. So I want to be remembered. What do I want to leave behind? So all that work that I was, building up my workshop, I was sufficing that behind the scene emotional need. But that was when I discovered it. Was like, oh my God, this is such up my alley. This is perfect. Yes, I'm not doing it for the wrong reasons. I am doing it because it really ultimately is aligning with my true authentic self. So even though I got obstacles along the way, I was able to tackle with them very easily. And there was a lot of synchronicity that took place. So that's how you know when you're forcing or flowing. And one of the first things that I would say to the audience is examine what is your what for before you hop into any goal.
And being in flow, I really feel like that it's a trust issue. If you, like, I personally believe God he withholds no good thing from you. So if you believe that, no, good things will come to you, and you don't have to force it, because you have this trust that if it's for you, it's going to come to you. then you're not worried and you're not stressed and you're not from this lack mentality. I think when we're forcing things, many times we're in this whole lack mentality that, like, we may be competitive because we feel like if this person has more, I have less, instead of seeing that there's enough for what I need,
Everybody. Mhm.
right? And
And for everybody,
that
there's enough for everybody.
the other big thing that I just really wanted to call out, because we've been talking about self-love and self-acceptance and approval. These are all things that you can give yourself. And if you realize that, maybe you were rejected when you were young, or someone didn't give you their approval, but you right now, where you are sitting in that chair or what in your car or doing cardio, if you just recognize you are enough, I can't add to you or take away from you. You alone, as you are right now, whether you're, tall, short, whatever your stature, whatever your financial situation, no matter where you're at right now, that you are enough and I cannot add or subtract from that. If you can just take that away today, I'll feel like we did our job.
Yes, yes, we did. Definitely. And it comes from, being in this, everything ultimately is love, the ultimate feeling that we want to live and work from. And yeah, work from is love. And when you're in that state, you could definitely feel not only enough, but satisfied, complete, perfect where you're at. Enjoy the present moment, feel grateful for it, see your blessing, see everything as a blessing. Like I said, if somebody's bringing you coffee, somebody opened the door for you, you have to really be present in that precise moment and think, I am committed to feeling lucky, grateful, abundant, whatever that might feel for you. But again, at the end of the day, there are two skill sets that you have to have present, and all this in all these steps are to be mindful and to be consistent, have that commitment with you in being mindful in terms of being present with yourself.
And like
And
what you said about focusing on the good things, it is kind of like the law of attraction. And I do think there's always some good to focus on, but many times we just draw out the negative. Like maybe you're in a relationship and your hubby or your boyfriend or your significant other didn't do X, Y, and Z, and you're focused on that. But if you would focus on the good, you bring more of that to you.
I have now that you're saying that, because again, because I were talking about vulnerability, I am very transparent. Like my stories, my superpowers are like, yeah, I'm an open book. And I gotta say, and I know this is no big surprise for anybody, but 2020 was a really challenging year for me, emotionally challenged for me, um, I would say. And I had, after I stepped out of that, betrayal, and I healed myself, I manifested a really nice relationship for myself. And we're getting married 2 months from now. The thing is that 2020 was like a really tough year for us. I thought, oh my God, this is happening to me again. This is not going anywhere. And I realized that the reason that 2020 was a challenging, emotionally challenging year for me was because I was focusing on the things that I didn't want, and I was creating more of that. And we all been there. It doesn't matter if you're a coach, whatever, a mentor, a psychiatrist, a therapist, whatever. We're humans. It happens. And I have an alarm set off 2 times a day because I don't want that to happen to me anymore. And I wrote on the alarm, what I want is what is. So sometimes I'm in an argument with my, hubby, whatever, same thing. You're too slow, you're not proactive, blah, 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 whatever it is that I'm again yapping about.
It's
And all
normal.
of a sudden the alarm sets off and I'm like, yeah, what I want is what is. And I look at him and I'm like, what do I have to complain about? That you're X or Y or Z. What I want is what is. I'm accepting what I have, and I'm being grateful for what I have. And sometimes I am dealing with his daughter, and his daughter's a special needs kid, and I'm not a mom of my own. So I'm like this, like a multitasking going on, and the hell has, gone loose sometimes at the house, and the alarm sets off. And I feel like, you know what, I'm the creator of this. I'm allowing this to happen. And then I start looking at it from a rising above perspective, and just looking at it and saying, I get to be a mom, a stepmom. I get to nurture somebody. I get to teach somebody, to remember the legacy that I have, that emotional need of legacy. I'm also feeding in my emotional need of leaving a legacy, because even if I don't have a kid, I still got her, and I am doing an awesome work here. So I'm leaving a legacy here. It doesn't mean that I get depleted, overwhelmed 10 times more than any other mom out there, because she's not even my daughter. So sometimes I don't get her. I don't know where she's coming from, right? Because she has no resemblance to me. And I don't get that connection, that kind of connection that a regular, biological mother sort of kind of gets, right? I'm assuming they do. Um, and I don't get that. But at the same time, I'm like, why do I keep working on her? Why do I keep helping her? But, and then I stand in that responsibility, projection, in terms of, I have the ability to respond to this any way I want. And the reason that I stay here is because I have an emotional need that I am sufficing. I'm helping somebody. I'm sowing the seed that, for my legacy. When I die, she's always going to remember me. She's going to say, she did stuff that my own mom didn't do for me, and that's something that no money can pay. And at least for me, it really goes up my alley, and it really aligns to what I work for. But how do I know that? Because again, I went into that self-knowledge stage with me every single day. I get to challenge my own conversations and know my own internal emotional needs. And then I could challenge that up against, so is this emotional need being met by the experience that I'm having? And then if they do match, then even if I'm having a crazy day with her, I get to respond. I get to say, but again, this is a reason. This is the what for I'm doing this. And that's the importance. I get myself dragged out of that turmoil. Oh, this is too hard, or whatever, and that into that internal sabotaging inner talk.
What would you, if you had the opportunity to go back to your younger self, what would you say to her?
I would say that everything is perfect, and everything does happen for a reason. Everything is perfect just the way it is.
Perfect. I think that's a good segue to end on. Where can everybody reach you? Get your social media.
They can find me.
Self-empowerment coaching.
Well, I have my one-on-one VIP program where I walk all my clients through 6 months of this training and all the steps that I explained. And obviously we go into more working, homework, assessments, ratings. We go into really deep dive of this, and I walk you through all my 4 steps. It takes about 6 months. And I only have like 3 spaces available because it's VIP and it just takes a chunk of my time. But if you don't get to be on that list, you also get to do it on a group scenario where you get to meet people that are, traveling to your own journey or similar journeys. So you can find me at my website. It's you could download some of my steps and some of the information that I've mentioned today in the show, and my website, Ana Merced. That's A-N-A, just one N, ANAMERCED.com. There's a tab right there that's called Empowered by Self-Love. And that's where you could download some of the workshops and stuff that I've explained today. You could also you could book a call with me through that same page. And there's also the high performing page if you want to find out if there's spaces available for high performance, and you could schedule a call with me. You could also find my work on Instagram and Facebook, of course. Everybody has to be there. And it's all my name. It's Ana Merced, ANAMERCED in Facebook. And then Instagram is Anna_Merced_.
Perfect. Let's all follow Anna today. And I want everybody to practice some self-love and embrace yourselves just as you are today. And I just want to thank you so much, Anna, for being such a light today to everyone out there.
Thank you so much for, having me and giving me the time and the space in your platforms. I am so happy to exchange light with you and energy with you today, and as well as your audience. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. And thanks for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat.